On today's show, as more and more Capitals players show up for these informal skates, what to expect from this team this season, and I'll talk about potential line combinations and D pairings next on this edition of Locked On Capitals.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about how more and more players are showing up at these informal skates. What are some of the initial takeaways? I'll talk about that. A little bit later, we'll talk about how Alex Ovechkin himself will be showing up in DC soon. Then we'll talk about potential line combinations and D pairings. And then in the final segment, we'll talk about how Sonny Milano and Andrew Mangiapane have a lot to prove. But just to get it going here, talking about the Capitals and more players showing up at these informal skates, really exciting. And one of the things that really pops off the page from viewing some of the video footage is that PLD is, as advertised, quite the skater, quite the shot. I'm already really excited to see what he has in the tank once the camp formally gets underway and these preseason and regular season games get going. Is he going to be the guy? Listen, there's quite a bit of talk out there about, is he going to be the top line center? Is he going to be the second line center? I'll talk about that later in the show, but exciting news and a big news that was announced here somewhat recently is that according to Alex Ovechkin's agent, he, in fact, will be arriving in DC soon. Alex Ovechkin, the captain of the Caps, is set to return to the U.S. in early September for his 20th NHL season with the team. Can we believe it? It's already coming up on his 20th NHL season. That's a sign of a couple things. That's a sign that Alex Ovechkin has been in the league for, well, a long time. And that's also a sign that, wow, Dan is getting old. But in any event, excitement abounds as we get to see Alex Ovechkin out on the ice. And a lot of questions, to be honest with you, what Alex Ovechkin is going to be on the ice. Is it going to be Alex Ovechkin of last year who got off to a slow start, or is this extra work that we've heard that he's put in the offseason going to pay dividends, and is he going to hit the ground running to help the Capitals in their pursuit of being a better team than they were last year, maybe making a deeper push into the playoffs? Maybe Alex Ovechkin can get close, really close, to catching Gretzky this season. That is quite exciting. But his agent confirmed that Ovi will join the Capitals for training camp and preparations for the upcoming 2024-2025 season. Ovechkin, who is 42 goals away from breaking Wayne Gretzky's all-time NHL goals record, is expected to join the team for informal skates at MedStar Ice Complex coming soon. That's when you know the rubber is really meeting the road for the Capitals. When you see the great 8 show up, as he is a guy that I guess I'm going to say probably doesn't need to get in a lot of extra work, but he could use some extra work just like the rest of them. But talking about the expectations for Ovi and the Capitals for the 24-25 season, as Ovechkin, who turns 39 on September 17th, enters the second to last year of his 5-year contract. The team has high hopes for his performance into the upcoming season, as do all of us. I think that to a certain extent, we want to kind of put last season in the rear view mirror. I think that, he ended the season on a high note, but I think if you think to yourself, how many goals would Ovi had scored had he not got off to that slow start? He could have well been on his way to being very, very close to catching Gretzky. Ovechkin finished the previous season with a strong second half, scoring 23 goals in the latter part of the year and setting a record with his 18th 30-goal season. So despite the fact that he didn't maybe get off to his greatest start, he continues to impress all the time. I mean, his 18th 30-goal season, that in and of itself is quite an accomplishment. The Capitals have also made significant changes in the offseason, adding impactful players such as PLD, Andrew Mangiapane, and Jakob Chychrun to strengthen the team's offense. With the team's new additions and Ovechkin's pursuit of the all-time NHL goal record, there are high expectations for the Capitals in the 24-25 season. Again, as I record this, and we're getting into the later part of August here, I am hopeful. And as Capitals fans, I would assume that you are hopeful as well, as it seems like the team is trending in the right direction. And it's hard to make a statement like that, considering, the Capitals have not played their first preseason game. They haven't even had their first official camp session. As you know, it's not going to take place here until September at some point. But it is exciting to see, like I said, a lot of the veterans showing up. We've seen Carlson and PLD out there, that players that necessarily wouldn't have to show up this early are early, getting in that extra work. Exciting times as a Capitals fan. But as far as Alex Ovechkin is concerned, the hope is that maybe he refrained from eating quite so much pasta and drinking so much Coca-Cola, and maybe he put in some extra work running up the hill with the tire chained around his waist like he used to do in his younger day. In any event, whatever his training regimen is nowadays, hopefully he is in a better position next season than he was in last season. Again, not to diminish the kind of season that he had last season, but we're hoping for a fully engaged Alex Ovechkin. Listen, he is not that far away from catching Gretzky. Some people are even saying something crazy. I'm hearing some people saying, could he catch Gretzky next season? Listen, it's not going to get any easier for Ovi the older he gets. I would love for that to happen. Don't get me wrong, but that's what we're hoping for at this point, is that he is in better shape, better mentally, and better physically. I'm not entirely sure right now, still, as I kind of reflect on last season, what it was that got him off to that slow start. Was it nutrition? Was it equipment? Was it the personal issues that he's dealt with in the last couple of years with the losses that he's had? In any event, we're hoping for a healthy Alex Ovechkin. As we know, a healthy Alex Ovechkin means the Capitals are in a good position. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about potential line combinations and deep pairings. Listen, it's still early, but it's not too early to talk about all of this. I'll discuss straight ahead. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Thank you for making Locked On Capitals your first listen of the day. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On NHL podcast. Locked On NHL provides you with a national perspective on all things NHL each and every day, with national experts and local insight on every team in the league. Available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Capitals are going through some changes. Nick Backstrom stepped away from hockey indefinitely. will most likely have the last season of his contract being spent on the LTIR. What is up with TJ Oshie? Is he going to in fact be joining the team? Listen, I don't think that is, the closer and closer we get to camp starting and there not being an official word, it lends me to believe that he will in fact not be joining the team. And there's, some things that make me think that the additions that are made on the team, the contracts and how much they were worth, Andrew Mangiapane in particular kind of lines up with how much TJ Oshie had on his contract in this last season. So it's interesting to see what it's going to shake out to be. As far as TJ Oshie is concerned, listen, I want a TJ Oshie that's healthy. I don't want him to have to go through what he has had to go through the past few years. Talking about training camp and offseason changes, the Capitals are gearing up for training camp following a busy offseason of changes that included bringing in several new players while parting with others. The team acquired PLD, Andrew Mangiapane, Logan Thompson, Jakob Chychrun, Matt Roy, Brandon Duhaime, Taylor Radish. Departures from the team included Kemper, Malenstein, Abe Kubel, Pat Chiaretti, and Nick Jensen. So as we take a look at it, I think that the additions outweigh the subtractions. I think the Capitals are in a good position. Risky moves, according to former GM Brian McClellan. Why risky? Well, because there is some good and bad. PLD, we know, had a down season with the Kings. What kind of season is he going to have? Andrew Mangiapane was good, well, a few years ago. Can he live up to his former glory? Logan Thompson, who struggled with some injuries last season. Jakob Chychrun, who didn't find a good match in Ottawa. Matt Roy, all things considered, pretty positive. Brandon Duhaime and Taylor Radish, question marks. They didn't go out for the marquee names. I guess you could almost kind of put PLD in there, but that is kind of tarnished with the season that he had last season. But they didn't go out for the Gensel. They did not get a Laine. They did not get a Marchessault. And they did that so they didn't have to mortgage the farm. They didn't have to give up future players. They didn't have to give up big, current players and players that will be a big part in the future. We know that the Jets and the Capitals were in talks about a Connor McMichael, Rutger McGroarty trade. Listen, they decided that they liked what they had in-house, and I think it's a good thing, all things considered. Talking about forward lines and centers, significant changes are expected with the Washington's forward lines. With the addition of Dubois and others, it's anticipated that Henrik Slapierre will make a full-time move to the NHL level, full-time. He's not going to jettison back and forth from Hershey to Washington. This is going to be his forever home, or as long as he's under contract. Talking about that, will make a full-time move, leading to an influx of centers and potential shift to the wing for one of the other players. Coach Spencer Carberry has indicated that Connor McMichael might play on the wing, while PLD and Dylan Strome are set to battle for the first-line center position to play alongside veteran Alex Ovechkin. So, I was asked the question about, what do I think that the line combinations are going to be? And I'm going to say what I think they are, kind of knee-jerk reaction. And then I'm going to say, but there's a caveat. There is a potential of what could change. So the top line, I have it being Alex Ovechkin, left wing, Dylan Strome center, and Tom Wilson right wing. Connor McMichael on the left wing, Pierre-Luc Dubois center, and Andrew Mangiapane right wing on the second line. Third line, Sonny Milano. Left wing, Henrik Slapierre center. Taylor Radish is going to be the right wing on the third line. And then Brandon Duhaime, left wing, Nick Dowd center, and Alexei Protas right wing on the fourth line. Again, that's kind of how I have it sketched out. I took a look at it. I thought about it. Could this player go here or there? That's just kind of my knee-jerk reaction, just throwing it at the wall and seeing if it sticks. Why Dylan Strome on that top line center position, as everybody is thinking it could be PLD, is Dylan Strome has shown to be that consistent player on the top line. He led the team in goals to start the season when Alex Ovechkin got off to that slow start. I know that Alex Ovechkin said that he lacked chemistry with the center. Did he mean Dylan Strome? Did he mean one of the other centers that he played with? I guess we don't know. I think that at least in part, Alex Ovechkin himself was frustrated with the way he played. So let's just take a look at it. Alex Ovechkin, top line, left wing, that's not going anywhere. Dylan Strome, center, and Tom Wilson, I think that is kind of set in stone. Okay, so let's talk about what could change. I think that Dylan Strome and Pierre-Luc Dubois could flip-flop. We don't know. That's always a possibility. My knee-jerk reaction, of course, I said Strome, but if Pierre-Luc Dubois really pops in camp, then he could be that top line center, first line center. But don't etch that in stone. That is subject to change. If he had lackluster play, then that could be Dylan Strome and vice versa. You take a look as well as Tom Wilson and Andrew Mangiapane. I think that Andrew Mangiapane, and I'll talk about in the last segment of the show, is looking for a breakout season. He is a good player. He's not as good as he has been a few years ago. I think that, Andrew Mangiapane could potentially be that first line right wing with Tom Wilson on the second. Again, it's very early. And it's going to depend on the chemistry. We don't know how it's all going to shake out. And I think that this is going to be a work in progress. Of course, we're talking preseason games and the start of the season. Hopefully, though, that in the first game of the season, when the puck drops, they have at least a pretty good idea of what it'll be. Third line, let's take a look at that. Sonny Milano, I think he has much to prove. If you take a look at the back of his hockey card, I'll talk about him in the final segment. He did pretty well as far as the goal scoring, but a hot and cold player. I would like to see more consistent play with Sonny Milano. As far as the center on the third line, Henrik Slop here. Maybe, this is the initial thoughts. I also think that Connor McMichael and Henrik Slop here could flip-flop. I do see Connor McMichael getting in some time at the center position. But what do we know? There is a glut of talent at the center position, but that's just the variable. Some people want my definitive, finite answer. You're not going to get it. What I said initially is what I said, but subject to change. Henrik Slop here, Connor McMichael could flip-flop. So also take a look at the third line, right wing, Taylor Radish. And then you take a look at the fourth line, right wing, Alexei Protas. Again, those two could flip-flop as well. I do see Brandon Duhaime on the fourth line, left wing, and Nick Dowd as the fourth line center. I don't see that changing much at all. So that is my initial reaction. Again, I talked about Ovi, Strome, Wilson, top line, McMichael, Pierre-Luc Dubois, and Andrew Mangiapane on the second line. Sonny Milano, Henrik Slop here, Taylor Radish, third line, Brandon Duhaime, Nick Dowd, Alexei Protas, fourth line. Again, subject to change. That is just calling it as I see it right now. But excitement. And again, the question mark is TJ Oshie. Uncertainty surrounds the future of TJ Oshie as the 37-year-old forward continues with chronic back problems. Amidst these changes, the prospects for Oshie's return remains uncertain. Again, you would be hard-pressed to find anyone that has something negative to say about TJ Oshie. He's a pleasant guy on the ice, off the ice. Everyone loves TJ Oshie. I just wish he would kind of start doing the right thing. And if his perception is that he's not going to be good to go, give the Caps, the GM, a good heads up to know how they can plan in the future. But that is the forward lines. Let's talk about defensive pairings. On the defensive side, the addition of Jakob Chychrun and the signing of Matt Roy have bolstered the team. It is expected that Chychrun and John Carlson will form a formidable top pairing, with Matt Roy and Rasmus Sandin likely to make up the second defensive pairing. Again, what are some of the things that we know is that John Carlson routinely played 25 to 30 minutes a night. Not good for Carlson or the Caps. Matt Roy was brought in to be a guy that can alleviate some of that pressure on John Carlson. And it's not just John Carlson. It also has to do with the play that we saw on the ice. Jensen, again, I had him kind of circled as being getting kicked out of town anyway. I thought that TVR could potentially be expendable as well. But let's take a look at the D pairings. The first pairing, Jakob Chychrun, John Carlson. Second pairing, Rasmus Sandin, Matt Roy. Third pairing, Martin Feravari, Trevor Van Riemsdyk. Again, Chychrun, the top line, playing on the left side with John Carlson, Rasmus Sandin. Second pairing on the left side. Again, I could see Chychrun and Rasmus Sandin interchange as well. Depends on how it all goes. Those are just my initial takeaways. So, I mean, there's other players that that are expected to be on the blue line as well. Alex Alexiev, where does he fit in? Potentially, he could fit into that mix as well. I also think that Vinny Iorio is going to make it an interesting camp, not to mention any other surprises that might pop off the page. But those are just my initial takeaways anyway. Again, that's all subject to change. I will give you my more definitive, finite answer as we see the camp progress. But that is my takeaway anyway on the forward lines and the D pairings. But we're not done then. The goaltending situation is one. If you're an everydayer of the show, you know I love to talk about. I think it's a chess match like none other. The goaltending situation in goal. Charlie Lindgren is set to start as the Capitals' #1 goaltender after an impressive performance in the previous season. However, he will face competition from new arrival Logan Thompson, who is expected to challenge for the starting position. Both goaltenders are set to push each other to perform at their best. That was what this is about. For one, Charlie Lindgren, former GM Brian McClellan did not want Charlie Lindgren to get too comfortable that, hey, I'm the top. I'm the #1 netminder for the Capitals, and just kind of rest on his laurels, knowing that Hunter Shepard is a bit of a step down, that he brought in Logan Thompson in the event that Charlie Lindgren struggled, and also to kind of apply pressure to Charlie Lindgren to bring his A game. Both Charlie and Logan are entering into contract years. One of those, I don't think both of them will get an extension. I guess it's possible that neither one does, but what we know for sure is Hunter Shepard and Clay Stevenson are the next two down the depth chart from that. Many people, myself included, think that Clay Stevenson is the long-term solution at the net-minding position. Logan Thompson was expected to challenge for the starting position. Both goaltenders are set to push each other to perform at their best as they look to secure their roles as the team's primary goaltender and potentially earn contract extensions. Now, what are some of the things that we know? Logan Thompson is familiar to the organization. We know that he had his struggles with the Golden Knights last season. Is it possible that Hunter Shepard steals something away? I'm going to go ahead and say that's a remote possibility, but you got to think, and your heart has to kind of go out to Hunter Shepard, as this was supposed to be his year. Is it ever going to be his year? That's the question. I am definitely in camp Hunter Shepard. I don't have anything disparaging to say about Logan Thompson, but I think that Hunter Shepard has put in the work at every level. It's just got to be difficult for a guy like that to be patient. It's going to be your turn at some point. Hopefully that is at some point. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about how Sonny Milano and Andrew Mangiapane have much to prove. Both players are looking for better seasons. Listen, neither one of them is horrible players, but they're looking to have better seasons than the season before. I'll discuss straight ahead. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to recent Indeed surveys. So if you are involved in the hiring and firing or HR in general, you need Indeed. And listeners to this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/locked-on. Just go to Indeed.com/locked-on right now and support our show by saying you heard about it on the Locked On Capitals podcast. Indeed.com/locked-on. Terms and conditions apply. You need to hire. You need Indeed. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So you take a look at two players in this segment, Sonny Milano and Andrew Mangiapane, two guys that I think have a lot to prove. And you take a look at Milano, again, a bit hot, a bit cold. If we take a look at the back of his hockey card, it wasn't horrible, but I definitely think there is room for improvement. So if we want to take a look at the 23-24 season, in 49 games played, 15 goals, 8 assists. We take a look at the 22-23 season in 64 games, 11 goals, 22 assists. And the 21-22 season with the Ducks in 66 games, 14 goals, 20 assists. I think there is room for more. And you see 49 games, converse the 64 and 66 in the previous. That was due in part to injury. That was due in part to some inconsistent play. But we need to see more. And why do I say that we need to see more? Well, I think that potentially there could be more viable options because, as you noticed when I was talking about those line combinations and deep pairings, one player I left off on purpose was Jakob Vrana, because, well, he is on a PTO. I mean, all of this is subject to change. You take a look at what kind of camp he has. If he really pops off the page, could he bump another guy out of my projected forwards? Definitely could be the case. So I think that Sonny Milano, along with some other players, you take a look at Duhaime and Radish as well as guys that are a bit further down, not those marquee names that they signed in the offseason. Those players are going to have to bring it as well. As you know, that there are players rather that played in Hershey that killed it in the Calder Cup, that a lot is going to be determined in camp, but for Sonny Milano, he has a lot to prove. Taking a look at his contract, he will be a UFA in the 26-27 season. And, if he is a guy that necessarily doesn't pop off the page, or say he really does pop off the page, do they have someone that can be more consistent on a regular basis than Sonny Milano? That is the question. Not here to disparage him, but I think that we need more. We know the big additions that were made in the offseason, and Sonny Milano's role in the future with the Capitals. Sonny Milano could potentially be a trade candidate for the Capitals in the upcoming season. Milano has proven to be a reliable bottom six forward, contributing both offensively and defensively. While unlikely to play in the top six next season, Milano's consistent and steady offense could provide valuable support for the Capitals or another team. So I know that it's, and I've already heard quite a bit of people say when they heard that Jakob Vrana was on a PTO, well, don't you touch Sonny Milano. I don't want to see him get bumped out of the lineup. It's important not to have favorites. And that's hard, but I want the most qualified player out on the ice that is going to give the Capitals the absolute best opportunity to win games. That is what I want. If it's Sonny Milano, great. But if it's someone else, then I'm all ears and open to that possibility. Another player that is looking to reestablish himself and play a bigger role. We know that he was big on the Flames at points, but I think that when you take a look at Andrew Mangiapane as well, we need to see more from him. So let's take a look at the back of his hockey card. In the 23-24 season with the Calgary Flames, in 75 games played, 14 goals, 26 assists. In the 22-23 season, in 82 games, 17 goals and 26 assists. And let's get down to brass tacks. Why did the Capitals sign Andrew Mangiapane? They're hoping they can get the Andrew from the 2021-22 season, who in 82 games scored 35 goals and 20 assists. You take a look at it, was a downward trajectory after that. It went from 35, 17 to 14. So was that a blip on the radar for Andrew in the 21-22 season, scoring those 35 goals? It could be. And that's what I'm saying, that both of those players have a lot to prove. Risky moves, according to GM Brian McClellan. So let's talk about the addition of Mangiapane. Another addition to the Caps, Andrew Mangiapane is a winger who was acquired from the Flames, although his offensive production has declined since the 21-22 season. There are positive signs on an analytical perspective. If Mangiapane can regain his form and make an impact on the team's offensive success, the Capitals are poised to make a strong push for the Stanley Cup. A group working together. It's not going to be one guy. I mean, if there was one guy to do it, of course, it would be Alex Ovechkin, but we need these players that were brought in to show why they were brought in. Listen, I think that Andrew Mangiapane has a good potential upside, but he still has a lot to prove to me. He still has a lot to prove, I think, to Capitals fans that he is deserving of a spot. Same goes for Milano. Again, when you walk away from this episode, don't think that I'm anti-Milano or Mangiapane. I'm just saying that they need to bring it, as there are other options that the Capitals have available. So a lot to consider, and I hope that a lot of these additions live up to what we think. PLD, of course, down season with the Kings. Is he going to live up to that? Is Chychrun and Roy going to be the answer on the blue line? That is our hope. We will find out a lot more as it will be made apparent as the camp progresses. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me once again on this edition of Locked On Capitals, and thank you for making it your first listen of the day. Now go check out the Locked On NHL podcast, where the season never ends, providing national expertise with a local perspective. You can find the link to Locked On NHL in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.